A while back, I did a video about playing evil player characters in a campaign, what it takes to do that, how to do it without bogging down the campaign and becoming a problem for all the other people, including the Dungeon Master at the table. And whether Dungeon Master should even allow that. Video's somewhere up here. And in the comment section of that video, Beyond Fantasy 4972 asked if I could do a follow-up about addressing players that are trying to be the antagonist in the campaign and what it means to do that and why they can't be. So for Beyond Fantasy 4972, this video is for you. I'm James, this is DM with a Day Job, and if it's been a while since your literature class, a brief refresher. An antagonist is whoever is against our viewpoint character. Whoever's telling the story, narrating it, whoever we see through the eyes of, that is the protagonist in a story. We generally think of them as good, and the antagonist as being the evil, villainous character. But that's not necessarily the case. If you wrote a comic book and the main character, the one telling the story, was Joker, then Joker is the protagonist and Batman is the antagonist. Even though Joker wants death, destruction, and mayhem, and Batman wants to keep the people of Gotham safe, Batman is the antagonist in this story. So Batman is generally thought of as good, with the exception of some Frank Miller comics. But I digress. Batman is generally thought of as good, Joker evil, Joker is the protagonist in this example. So it is possible to have evil characters that are the protagonist. Then it's possible for our players as well. We can have players playing evil characters that are the hero characters, the point of view characters in our stories. That doesn't really help us a lot when we're talking about what makes an antagonist in a Dungeons and Dragons sense. Like, literally, a player could not be an antagonist because the player is the point of view character. The Dungeon Master is playing all the antagonistic characters. But that doesn't really get to the point of what I think Beyond Fantasy was trying to say in his comment, which is a lot about the social construct of going into playing a group of characters in a role-playing game. There are some players that when you sit down to play a role-playing game, they see everyone at the table, not just the Dungeon Master, as their competition. These are other players that we are trying to beat, win against. That's not really what playing a game of Dungeons & Dragons and tabletop games are about. There are other games that play that way, and by all means, go play them. Descent is set up that way. You are a Dungeon Master, but you're supposed to try to win. That is for that kind of style of play. I'm sure there are others as well. There's some that are more in the role play style than a strictly tactical board game like Descent is. When you're playing a fantasy tabletop role-playing game like Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder, you are playing a member of an ensemble cast. You are the Avengers that is gathered together to defeat Thanos or whatever evil has come across, like Galacticus or something like that. And with your powers combined, with all your individual weaknesses and your individual strengths, you can come together to become greater than the sum of the parts individually and defeat something that is threatening all of the kingdom or all the realm or the world, depending on how big the scope of the adventure is. That is the goal. You can certainly be a villainous, evil character that goes along with the party. Often, Magneto goes along with the X-Men because the threat is that severe that Magneto says, all right, Charles, I'll go with you this time. Now, it is possible to play a character that is trying to eventually attain supervillain status eventually. An antagonist with a capital A knows secrets about the world, the deep magic.
Do not cite the deep magic to me, witch. I was there when it was written.
Fantastical powers, has authority over entire kingdoms, lots of troops to command, which are a form of power, and is using those for good or ill. In the ill, we have someone like Sauron, who is a Dark Lord when we meet him at the beginning of Lord of the Rings. But earlier, he got that power because he was there when Arda was created, but also through association with Melkor, and then eventually with some alliances with the elves that he eventually stabs in the back, figure out how to make the rings and eventually the ring of power that allows him to control it all. But then he's an antagonist. In Harry Potter, Voldemort starts out as a kid and then learns how to create the Horcruxes through Professor Slughorn, and then finds out that if I could split my soul 7 ways, I am a more powerful mage, that I've gone farther in magic than anyone has ever dared go before. But on the good side, you have someone like Arthur, who is given power and authority over Albion or England by the lady in the water giving him Excalibur.
That I, Arthur, was to carry Excalibur. That is why I'm your king.
And now he has the right to unite all of England and become the king on the throne and form a goodly nation and force his version of righteousness on all of the kingdom, all of the realms. All those mysteries, those are all in the dungeon master's head. If you have a dungeon master like me that has given you some sort of a handout, a PDF, or a notebook of like all the gods in the world and all these kind of things to leaf through when the other players are being boring trying to find magic items, by all means, go leaf through it and figure out, if I was to create this magic item out of mithril silver under the lights of these 2 moons at this specific time of year with the souls of 12 demi-planar beings, whether those devils or angels, and a blood sacrifice, I could create this magical power, a ring that would allow me to dominate all life and all whatever. Yeah, go right ahead. But the moment that you do that, you have strayed from normal player power into antagonist power. You are now the king on the throne. You can no longer go adventuring. You are now the Dark Lord, who is an antagonist for everyone else. Hand over your character sheet, because now it's on me. You can play a group of budding villains that will eventually get there and figure out how they can become these dark powers. That's fine if that's an eventual goal, but I would recommend in that case that you talk to both the dungeon master and the players about it. The players may not want to go along with that and go, no, we really want to play heroes, or we really want to play a group that is going along together somewhere. Because if you play this adventure for 6 months, a year, when you get to 15th level and all of a sudden your character is at the level where they could create, rings of power, or they could create Horcruxes or become liches or ancient evil deities or something, do you really want to stop and say, hey, we're going to play with a totally new character that we've introduced that isn't one of the characters that we've been partying with this entire time? We're just going to shove one in. That feels very much like jumping the shark to many players. Jumping the shark is from television, where all of a sudden there's a fundamental shift in the dynamics of how the story goes along. You've already hit a peak point of the adventure, a climax, and then it's normally downhill from there. But for some reason, you've decided, nope, oh wait, that's not the end. And then you try to bring it back up. It's from an episode of, I can't remember the show, but it's where Fonz literally jumps a shark in the episode. That's where that's from. You'll find it in television where they all of a sudden introduce a new character out of nowhere. That's what you are as a player. The new character that wasn't there before, that all of a sudden let's have this new person in the story to kind of liven things up. It doesn't work real well in television most of the time, and it's not going to work really well at your table most of the time. So if you're going to do that, that is the capstone of the adventure. And you're going to have to turn over the character at the end of it. I think it could be a lot of fun to play a game where we're all playing budding future antagonists, budding future villains. Let's say that you play a campaign in Albion, and one of you is Mordred, and one of you is Morgause, and one of you is another dark wizard or something. And you're all coming together to try to figure out how to dethrone Arthur. And you figure out that eventually all you have to do is get the scabbard away from him, and you have to tempt Lancelot away from Arthur, and you have to get Gawain to be away from the field, and then we can finally kill Arthur and steal his crown. But the moment one of you puts your bum in the throne and the crown on your head, campaign's over. That character has won and is now the main one, and nobody really wants to play where one of you is the giant eye of Sauron on top of Barad-dûr, and the rest of you are the Nazgul, and one's going, I am the Dark Lord, and go out and kill hobbits or something. And I don't think it would really be fun for you because the moment they all leave and you're still stuck there on your throne or on top of your tower or wherever it is, you're going, well, this is not really interesting for me to play this character. I'm just sitting here while you roll all the dice. No, that's not fun. It could be fun to get there. It could be fun to uncover secrets and a reversal of the way it was. But once you do accomplish it, you got to turn it back over to the Dungeon Master. Until next time, players, remember that your Dungeon Master is a player too. Try to let them have some fun.